Randy, it's really cool to address you like this. Being in a mix with a bunch of other guys that want to speak, not just to say, hey, Randy, have fun or do great or whatever else, but speak into some areas of your life that are significant. And there's something that happens when men hit kind of a different stage of life. When you turn 13 and you get your first body hair or whatever else, and then you turn 18, you become your own person. You turn 21 and you're able to go to bars or something like that. There's these windows, these pockets of time that say you are entering into a new season, a new place in your life. And as your dad and I have been talking, he wanted to make something pretty special. And what's special is that he's been able to identify men to say, I want you to talk to my son about some things that you're not just saying stuff to him, but you're calling him to something. My topic for you is service and being a servant. And it involves words like compassion, empathy, generosity, caring, serving, and responding to the needs of others. Something that we believe and we model after Christ when he says to his disciples, he says, a new command that I give to you, to love one another as I have loved you. And when you look at that passage, what he's saying in John chapter 13, he's saying, as I just loved you. And what he's referring to in John chapter 13, verse 1, is where Jesus takes on the role of a servant, strips down, and takes on a role and washes the disciples' feet. He does something that no one else will do. And he does something that demonstrates his character and his life. And he says, I will be about the business of serving, taking a role that demonstrates to people love, compassion, caring, that I'm not above you, I'm with you. And Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, the Rabbi, gets on his knees and he washes the disciples' feet. And there's this really cool piece for you to see. You're going to have these pockets, these windows, where you'll see an opportunity to serve. And it'll be what God has prepared in advance for you to do. Ephesians 2:10. God has prepared. There's workmanship. He's prepared things in advance for you to walk in and do. And you have to have the courage, bro, to do this and to live this and to make this an attitude and a habit of your own life. It's such a big deal. Scriptures tell us when Jesus was on the Mount and he gives this sermon, there's this real key passage where he says, let your light so shine. Let your character, let what you are demonstrate to the world that it is light to darkness. That people can see your good works, your acts of service, your demonstrations of compassion, your benevolence and your generosity. Let your light so shine that they see those things. And they too, Randy, will glorify your Father in heaven. It's a big deal, dude. I'm not there to watch you. Your pops isn't there to watch you. You are your own man now. And the decisions that you make and the life that you live, we're calling you to be a man that lives like Jesus and demonstrates his character through service. God bless you.
Oh, hey Randy, what's up? Just putting some money into my savings account. Hey, speaking of savings and money, I want to charge you with being a good steward of the resources that God's going to be giving you. Okay, as you go off to the Navy and you're going to start your new career, right? You're gonna probably get a bigger paycheck than what you're used to. And what I want to charge you again with is how to respond once you have all those finances. And be responsible with the money that God is giving you, because it's from God. You worked for it, but ultimately it is from God. He's blessing you with those buddies that you're gonna be with. They're gonna want to go and say, hey, let's go spend the money right away. Let's go have fun. Let's live it up. Again, what I want to challenge you with is thinking differently than the world. I just want to share with you some ideas from what I've learned from both just going to school and also from just through the Bible. All right, so one of the things I want to talk to you about is need versus want. As you're getting these paychecks, the temptation is, hey, I'm going to buy stuff. I need this, I need this, I need this. And what I want to charge you with again is really question yourself, do I need it or is it just a want? So what I've always done is when I'm confronted with, am I going to buy this, take a day off, maybe a week, and just step back and say, you know what, if I really need it, I'll still feel the same a day later or a week later. That's helped me to figure out whether to go spend that money or to set it aside and which allows me to make that money work for me, and also to save it for a rainy day. When I graduated from high school and I went to college, all the banks started coming at me with credit card offers and saying it's basically like it's like free money. And I just really want to warn you that it's not free money. These guys are out to get you, and they're trying to make money off of you. So, when you're getting these credit card offers or any sort of debt, step back and think about it and read up on it. One of the things that I did was I really made sure that where I could, I paid in cash, or I made sure that I can afford it before I made that purchase, because the last thing you want to be doing is, a year out, 6 months out, out of Navy, and you're like $50,000, $20,000 in debt. And guess what? Now when you start making money, you're paying a lot of that money back in interest, and you're already behind. So I'm telling you all of this because I just want to remind you that, again, all these resources comes from God. God expects is that we use the resources to minister to others. And so just to be able to save money, not spend it for just stuff that you're not going to care about a year later, but instead take those resources, invest in the lives of others, and being generous. I think that's the challenge and that's the charge that God's calling you. As you're sailing out into other countries, you're going to see that other countries aren't as good as what we've got. So the challenge is, hey, the money that you've been given, can you invest and help those around you, the kids in some of these countries, those who don't have much, being a blessing and just being Jesus to them. Have that discipline to set aside those funds. All right, so to summarize, what are we talking about? Being thoughtful with your purchases. Do I really need it now, or can I wait a week or a day later, and is it still as important? Debt, right? Not being in debt if you can, and therefore not being crippled by having to pay all this interest later on, but saving money instead, making that money work for you, not work for your money. And then third, having these resources that you save so that way you can invest in the lives of others. And again, just being Jesus to those. I'm so excited to see the man you become, and I can't wait to see what God has in store for you once you go out. All right, God bless.
Hey, hi Randy. Couldn't resist one last time to preach a sermon to you before you go, and I know it's an exciting time for you, and there's going to be some guys that are going to kind of do some things for you tonight, just to maybe give you one last little word of encouragement and challenge as you head out, because we love you, and we've come to appreciate what God's done in your life and the gifts that you have, and the expectation that we have that God has some cool things for you. So I want to talk to you a little bit about probably going to be one of your toughest areas, and that's going to be sexual purity. It says in Ephesians chapter 5, a verse that sets the bar for sexual purity really high. It says, "But among you, Christians, there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality." That means that you could actually be innocent of any wrongdoing, but if you're doing it in such a way that people think you might be doing it, that you violated this command. So what I want to tell you is that as you go off to the Navy and you're going to do your thing, it's that God is asking you to live such a life that not only do you keep free from sexual immorality, but you keep free from a lifestyle that has hints of sexual immorality. Now that is a tremendously difficult task for us. And in terms of what that might look like, well, the actions, this word for sexual immorality is where we get our word pornography from. It's a word that's the most general, broad term thing. It's behaving in any way where you might defraud another person, or even defraud yourself. But it's even deeper than that, because this issue is not just a moral obligation of your behavior, but it's more of a heart condition. And what I want to talk to you about is that it's even deeper than that. It's not just your actions towards sexual immorality, which are tough. They're tough. I agree. But it even gets more specific because the scriptures teach about our attitude towards it. He said, "Nor should there be," and I don't know how you do the military and obey this verse. You're going to be deeply challenged by this. "Nor should there be any obscenity, any foolish talk or coarse jesting which are out of place. And the context is clearly sex and sexual immorality. So he's saying that there shouldn't even be, your attitude shouldn't even be revealed by your words. That there shouldn't be any obscenity, and it's talking about sexuality. The word literally means filthiness. There should be no filthy talk. He said there shouldn't be any foolish talk. And the word there, it's a combination of word moros logos. It's where we get our word moron from, and word. So there shouldn't be any moronic words where you talk about things in a way that's just foolish. And then it says it shouldn't even be any coarse jesting, which are out of place. And that's talking about sex in such a way where it's easily turned. And our culture right now, this is like gigantic. PG-13s and all the sexual innuendos where they don't flat out say something, but they say it in such a way where you know they meant it. That's what this word is. This is the word easily turned, where you can take a phrase and easily turn it. One of the most famous ones, and you hear this all the time, is, well, that's what she said. You know, they're just taking something and they're just turning it towards a way where they are taking something that God has created for our enjoyment, and He has made it sacred and has created it deep inside of our soul. So much a part of who we are that it actually, if run amok, it will shipwreck our soul. Our culture wants to take these things, this idea of sex that God is completely for, and wants to turn it, wants to make it nasty, make it filthy, make it something that's funny and cheap. And this scripture in Ephesians 5 is saying, your task is that there shouldn't even be a hint of it in your actions. And there shouldn't be any mention of it in your words, which shows your attitude towards it. Now, how do you do that? I feel like I got to tell you, you're going to have a lot of people back here praying for you that you can do that. But a couple of things that you might do is you might magnify the consequences of messing this up. There's all kinds of STDs and people getting pregnant too early, and the guilt and shame that come from this kind of a lifestyle. You might just magnify the consequences of some poor choices. You might also be very diligent in managing your mind. The whole idea of garbage in, garbage out is absolutely true. And I know there's already been some struggles here, and what man hasn't had struggles here? Flood of pornography that is available to us in so many different forms. If you're not diligent here and you leave that gate a little open, you're not going to have any success in the first parts of what I talked about. Maintain proper relationships. Just set up some boundaries in advance before you get into those relationships. Maintain those things in advance so that you can have the guidelines for things in terms of how you'll act in relationship already established for you. Psalm 51 is what I call the morning after psalm. It's the psalm that David wrote after he had been with Bathsheba and got caught. And it basically set things in motion that ruined his personal life for the rest of his years. His family life was full of turmoil and strife because of this one failure. But there's some things that kind of come out of it in terms of a payoff once he confesses it. And I'm not laying out for you a sin that's unpardonable or is going to completely demolish any hope you have of ever being. Thank God that that's not true, or I would have been disqualified at age 14. So I'm not saying those kinds of things, but I am saying that in the midst of this, there's some payoffs to keeping a pure and an honest heart. There's intimacy with God. You have the idea where it says, wash away, in verse 2 of 51, wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you and you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your heart, so that you are proved right when you speak, and justified when you judge. And then he says, cleanse me, and let me hear the joy and gladness of your face, and hide your face from me, so that I can have this intimacy that's restored. The power and the intimacy that's available in Christ When you enter into a lifestyle of sexual immorality, you are robbed of that intimacy. The shame will choke it out. And you'll be like straddling a barbed wire fence. You won't be able to enjoy either side of the fence. The times where you go to worship will seem dry, and the sin will be filled with shame. Next, there is great endurance in this, in that it says, create in me a pure heart, O God, verse 10, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. There is joy. Verse 12, restore the joy of your salvation. Grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. And there is power in the ministries that and opportunities that you're going to have. You are going into a pretty dark arena with the armed forces. You're going to need all of the resources that the Holy Spirit can bring into your life. You can't afford to quench or to push aside any of that power that the Holy Spirit has for you. We're not afraid that you're going to go off and get and choose and turn from your faith necessarily. What we're afraid of is that you would go off and just very gradually get sucked into a culture where the power and the joy and the gifts that we have seen exhibited would get robbed from you. And so just know, brother, just know we understand the struggle, and we are praying for you. And we look forward to you staying in contact with us through email and Facebook and other ways. And we can't have to wait to hear how God grows and uses you for His kingdom and His pleasure.
Hey Randy, you know who this is. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about you joining the Navy and you being bold in the Navy. Now, we've been through a lot together. I've actually known you since you were a freshman, when you used to have the long hair and you used to have to twitch to get the hair out of your face. And to see you grow up as a leader in the church and in worship has just been absolutely amazing. And that's why I try and tell you on a daily basis how much I love you and how much I'm proud of you. Now, the emphasis of what I want to talk about is actually you being bold in the Navy. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. You've been completely surrounded by church family, church leaders, pastors, all these people pouring into you, all these people that you can go to, Sarah Beasley, Kristen, Mike, me, your father, everybody. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. But you got to remember what Joshua says. Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I know you can do it. I know that you can be bold. I know that through the struggles and everything that we've talked about that you've gone through, that you want to be good, you want to be bold, you want to change people's lives. What better way to do it in the Navy? You're going to be stuck on a boat with a whole bunch of guys that you're not going to know. And I just want to encourage you to be yourself, be Jesus, and be bold. So, as you know, when you join the Navy, you're going to be hanging around a bunch of dudes, and what they like to do is party and kind of go out and have fun, and you're going to be tempted. They're going to test you. They're going to test your faith. And what you need to do is just stand strong, be firm with your faith, and just realize that you're being tempted, and to be that example that Christ calls you to be. That you don't even need to talk to them about Jesus. They'll know through your actions. They'll know through the things you do, through the decisions that you make. And you never know, you could change lives. In fact, I know you're going to change lives. And even if it's not through Jesus, just your personality and your sense of humor and your charm is just out of bounds. And you're going to be changing a lot of people's lives. I just hope you do it for the glory of Christ.
Hey Randy, just want to give a couple minute talk to you. First of all, say how proud I am of you. I remember little Randy Iacovetta back in junior high, and just love being around you, still love being around you, and I'm going to miss you dearly. But I'm excited about where you're going to go and what you're going to do, and I still see the heart of God inside of you and your talent, so I want to first of all just encourage you with that. And in that idea, I really want to press into you the idea of being honest. And we've had a lot of conversations about this, about just telling the truth and being honest both in what you say and, you know, as the Bible says, yeah, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. But also, and I think more importantly for you, in who you are. And I think for you, what I want to encourage you in this idea of being honest is really, it's about finding your identity in the right places. Because here's the thing: if you're looking for your identity to be found in the encouragement and the praise and the recognition and the "I love Randy's" from other people, then I can almost guarantee you the honesty of who you are and who God made you to be is going to be different in every circumstance, because it's going to be searching out for what can I say, what can I do, how can I act in order to get that praise and that recognition and that identity from other people. And then your life becomes dishonest to yourself and dishonest to the identity God's given you. Press into your idea of who God thinks and knows you are and who you actually are, because that's who God has created you to be. There's a big difference. Be just that identification foundation for you so that you can live honestly to who you actually are. So that you're not swayed in the wind by who you're around, but you can say confidently, not only am I a child of God, but God has made me, Randy Iacovetta, with gifts that I know I've seen and gifts that I'm extremely impressed with, and gifts that I know God looks down on you and says, yes, when you're using those gifts for Him, way to go, good and faithful servant. And so in this idea of honesty, Randy, just find yourself reflecting on when you get in those circumstances where you feel the pressure of people around you starting to control your identity, to say, no, where am I going to find my identity? Because it's in who you are and those talents that God's given you. When you're acting those out in truth, when you're acting those out in a reflection of God, you're more of who you are than you'll ever be by falling into the identity and the dishonesty of being captured by the thoughts of other people. I want to warn you that the trap of being dishonest to yourself and dishonest to God is huge, because it plays into our ego. It plays into us feeling good in this temporary time. It plays into all these ideas of us being important and being liked by those around us. But as it plays into all those and builds up this false self, it really kills us inside. When those tough times come and you are in the struggle about who your honest self is and where you need to be honest, that you remember the times and the experiences that you've had with God, and you remember the truth that's been spoken into you about God, and you hold on to that as your true identity and speak truth and be honest to yourself through the knowledge that you have and the love that you've experienced through this church, through me, and through those around you who are following Christ. Love you, bro.
What's up, Randy? Well, it's a bummer to see you gone, but we're also really excited that you're entering a new stage of life where this is a different kind of manhood right here. It puts a little bit more hair on your chest, and I know about hairy chests. And so I wanted to talk to you just about what it is to be a good friend, about friendship. I look at my friendships, I guess, with Tyler and James and Brian and the guys that are in the band. We find common ground, which is, first of all, our common ground that's in Christ. And then the joys that we experience, whether it's with hiking, whether it's with playing music, climbing, playing foosball, whatever it is, you find these things. Now, you're going to a place where you don't know people. You don't know their names, you don't know their background. And so one of the biggest issues that you're probably going to face is a little bit of loneliness, which, as unfortunate as it may sound, that's just kind of the case. There's a calling that has been placed in your life as a Christ follower to go and make disciples of all nations. And so where you are being placed is a place specifically where you can go and be Christ. Whether it's a dark place or a light place, you can go and be Christ-like. So let me just read from this passage real quick in John chapter 15. Verse 12, it says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends." Now, when I think about that verse, I don't know if contextually it's right, but when I think of laying something down, I think of like a soldier laying down his weapon in surrender to say, okay, I'm going to do this so that he may live, so he can get out, whatever it may be. So in the same way, we do the same with our life, is that we lay our life down for the sake of others. And that's an act of selflessness and an act of love, which is what we are called to do. So when you're in this place, when you're in the Navy, when you're meeting people, doing things for people, remember that you're not there to serve, though in part you are there to serve the Navy and serve your country. You are there because you are serving Christ, and that is where he has you specifically. So with the people that you are with, be Jesus to them. Lay your life down so that they may know the love that comes from Christ. And that's what friendship looks like, is being able to lay down your life. Whether you have great friends in the Navy, whether you have terrible people just nagging on you, bagging on you, whatever. My challenge is to lay down your life in any and all circumstance. Whether it's good or bad, you need to remember that you are not God. He is God in all circumstances, all right? I love you, bro, and I'm so proud of you, where you've come and what you've done so far, and your passion for music and your passion for people. Keep going hard, man. I love you so much. Have a good time in the Navy. Yeah, hopefully we see you soon.
I'm so glad to be part of this opportunity to just kind of speak into your life. It's been so good to know you over all these years. I mean, I remember, you were one of the better behaved boys in the Sunday school class that I ran, and I always enjoyed when you came in because you were attentive and teachable, and it's been wonderful to see you grow over the years and to see you just grow from a young boy into a young man. And I'm so excited for this journey that you're on, this opportunity to take this next step, and my prayer is just that your time in the Navy is a real time of growth where you get to take what you've experienced in life already, things that have been built into you by your family and your church family here, and those become even more real in the days to come. I remember when my son Drew joined the Marines, he said, "Dad, everybody in here is like 17 years old and comes from totally dysfunctional families, and they've got either a wife or a pregnant girlfriend back home." And he said, "It's just completely different for me to be around, people who have had just a very different life." So, my prayer would be that, as you go into this environment, and you would begin to have an appreciation or a gratefulness for how God guided your life. I don't want to paint a picture that life has been easy, but you've had a father who's loved you tremendously, and Tina has loved you tremendously, and I just think you've been surrounded by a lot of people who have just really poured into your lives. Whether they've mentored you around music, you've had tremendous opportunities, and my hope is that there's a gratefulness that comes from being around other people whose lives have been very different. And another thing I realized from Drew's experience in the Marines is that often there's a real pull to conform to the norm. And when you've got an awful lot of dysfunctional kids coming out of dysfunctional families, the norm can really shift maybe from what you've experienced. And my prayer would be that this is an opportunity for you to lead. Certainly when you go into the Navy, there's going to be a lot to learn. As you integrate into that system, you also at the core hang on to who you are, that there have been things that have been built into you, and that this would maybe even be a galvanizing moment for you where you could solidify more and more who you are as a man of God in the midst of difficult circumstances, because there will be temptations, there will be challenges, there will be difficult commanding officers, and I still think it's a wonderful opportunity for you, for your light to shine. And so I just want to encourage you in that. I pray that in the midst of all that you are taking on and the uncertainties that sometimes come up, that you would have moments where you could just pull away and go to a quiet space, that you could find some contentment in all that you're learning, all that you're doing, that you know that even when you can't get a hold of anybody else because of where you are, what you're doing, God's always with you. And that you would have a sense that no matter what's going on, I can always pull away and be with God. One scripture that came to mind as I was just thinking about, this big transition into Navy life, is Paul's admonition to the church at Colossae in chapter 3, where he says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, and as you sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him," so that as you excel, you would amaze people with your ability to persevere, the endurance, the commitment to excellence that you show, because you're working for God too. And there will be people who will want to know what motivates you, what drives you, what's at the core of who you are, Randy. And I pray that during this time, your connection to Christ would be strengthened and solidified. Look forward to seeing you when you come back and hearing some of the stories about how life's going and what you're learning, because this is going to be an amazing time. I just want to finish with Paul's encouragement to the church at Ephesus in chapter 3, where he says, "You know what, my prayer for you isn't that you become the best midshipman ever, but that you grow in your sense of how deeply loved you are by God, how deep, how wide, how long God's love is to you through Jesus Christ." And that would never fade in your life, Randy. God bless.
Hey, buddy. It's an honor for me just to have a few minutes just to speak to you. I've really felt it a privilege to be a part of your life these last few years. And I got to tell you, honestly, it's been a huge joy to see you develop, not just only in your skills, because clearly you've added excellence to your drumming and being a singer and a musician with playing the guitar and seeing all that excel, but probably the greatest joy is for me just seeing your development when it comes to your heart for God. I mean, I've sat in this room with you as you've been a part of our discussions and heard you chime in and give input, and I can see significantly God's work in you. And it's just a great joy because I feel like I get to partner with that and to see you now come to this place where there's a launching. Some of the things that have been poured into you, now you're going to take those and they're going to be tested and refined. These are things now that you're going to have to own and things that have been poured into you and taught. Now you're going to get to practice some of those without some of the normal reinforcements. And my word to you would be to be humble. And I know, because you and I have talked a little bit about where your Achilles heel is in some regards. And for all of us who have a very visible role in people's lives, a lot of times they either hate you and give you immediate feedback, or they give you all sorts of affirming feedback, and it's easy to wrestle with pride and to struggle with that a little bit. And I know you shared some of that stuff with me, and I would just really encourage you and admonish you to be a humble man. And if you think about it like this, there's an ancient kind of proverb that says, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. And sow a character and reap a destiny. And what I like about that is from the very smallest constituent part, and that is just your thoughts. What you think, you begin acting on. What you act, if you do it enough, you develop a habit with it. And if you develop enough of a habit with it, it starts refining and changing your character. And as it changes your character, it sets you on a course. And when you think about the things that have been poured into you, if you can add to it and strengthen your muscle of thinking as a humble man, what's going to happen is that your character will so slowly be refined by it, and you will be defined as a humble man. And that'll set you on a course for being noticed as a humble person, and your influence and impact will be tremendous at that point. And you'll be able to influence and call other people to that same kind of humble living. I think of this, I just jotted this down. Humility is really about, it's not so much thinking less about yourself as much as it is thinking about yourself less. And break that down a little bit. What I mean by that is, it's not being humble just to say, oh, I'm no good at this, or put yourself down, or thinking I have nothing to offer.
Humility is really that ability to have a strong sense of who you are and how God has wired you. But you don't always have to focus on yourself. It gives you the opportunity to let go of your needs and put somebody else's needs ahead of yourself. And that's the real essence of humility. I wrote down what one author said because I thought he grabbed it really accurately. He says, humility is the noble choice to forgo your status, deploy your resources, or use your influence for the good of others before yourselves. More simply said, a humble person is marked by willingness to hold power in service of others. So it's not an absence of strength. It's not the absence of having a healthy estimate of who you are and how God's wired you. It's not even that you can't receive compliments, you can't receive affirmations. What it means is you put somebody else's needs ahead. You don't place that your focus. That isn't the sole essence of what you're about. When you act like that, when you have that as a character quality, the promises of God are rich in your life. Listen to what it says in 1 Peter. It says this, all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but he shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, and here's the promise, that he may lift you up in due time. God is resistant to a person who's proud. Know that God is in your corner, that all the blessing and affirmation and strength of God is breathed into you when you do that. And in God's timing, he will lift you up. He will honor you, Randy. He will allow your influence and your impact to be mighty and to be great. What does it look like in your life? What does it look like in my life? What I would call you to is find one small habit that you could do regularly that would remind you, it's mostly for you, that would remind you, I need to be humble. For me, a lot of times, even on weekends I lead worship. I'll walk out of the parking lot and I'll pick up little pieces of trash. Or I'll walk into the bathroom and after I can see towels left over. I know you're going to the military. And I know the thought is, well, somebody else will probably do this. They could. But what it does for you is it puts you back, it's a touchstone. It puts you back in touch with the fact of, I need to be humble. I need to put somebody else's, I can serve somebody else. And as you practice that, I really believe it will start developing in you a habit. And it'll start forming your character where people will recognize you and know you to be a humble man. And God will bring you lots of honor. And you'll have to be creative. I mean, maybe it's when you come to the mess hall and you eat, you always make sure you're last in line. It could be a small thing, and it could be something nobody even notices, but you know why you're doing it. And what God will start doing as you do that will deepen your commitment to it, and again, your character. Maybe nobody else sees it initially, but people will sense that is a humble man, and they will be drawn to the Christ in you.
Hey Randy, it's me, Jason. I just want to say I'm really proud of you, of what you've done so far in life, and what you're going to do. And I'm proud of you're going to be in the Navy. And I just want to say I love you. You're my little brother, and you mean a lot to me. You hold a special place in my heart. The one thing I want to talk to you for a few minutes is be a good, hard worker. I was already raised in my life to nothing that's given to you, you have to work for it. If you want to make better for yourself, you have to earn it. I work, I'm supposed to work 8-hour days, I work 10-hour days. I always try to go above and beyond. One of my goals is always to make my boss life a lot easier. So one day, let's say they need something or that can be beneficial to the company, they'll look for me, not nobody else, because I've already helped out the company with my work ethic, coming in early, doing the little things that no one else want to do. So I want to encourage you to be a hard worker. Like I said, nothing's given to you. All you have is your word, and and with that said, you have to work really hard to keep it. Want you to make a lot of money in life, want you to be happy, but with that, you have to work hard. As being a Christian, I want you to be the best you can with that. God's always looking at you, so when you're doing stuff, if you don't think no one's looking at you, God's watching you. God knows what He's He knows what you're doing. So if you're taking shortcuts, you might think your boss is, he doesn't know this, but God will. At the end of the day, God is your boss, and you want to please Him. You want to make Him happy, and me personally, I look up to you, Randy, as a Christian, because me and my faith is not very strong, but I'm getting better. But especially when you gave me that Bible, I really looked up to you, and I want you to succeed, and I really want you to work hard. All right, Randy, I'm going to end this up saying I love you, and I want you to succeed. I want you to do better than me and your sister have done. I want you to buy your first house, when you're 24, 25. I want you to be successful, but with that comes is hard work and doing it for yourself and doing it for God, because everything He gives us is not for us, it's for Him. So I want you to work really hard. I want you to make us proud. You only give Him one life, and just make us proud. And I love you with all my heart.
I'm really excited to have this opportunity. I'm really glad that your dad asked me to participate in giving you a real send-off into this next journey for you. Being wise as you make all of these life-changing choices can be really hard, and we want to encourage you and help you understand that you are equipped to make correct decisions and to have a big impact for the kingdom where you're going, even as the world closes in around you and makes things a lot more challenging. Stepping out into the world as a man is hard enough, and finding your own identity and moving into the world to create a positive impact is a challenge regardless of whether you're a believer or not. But it's that much more challenging when you've taken Christ in and really decided to make Him the center of your life. Life is going to throw a lot at you that none of us can anticipate. And as much as we like to think we have prepared you, all we've done is shown you the choices that we've made through the process of being involved in your life in Ignition. And I would encourage you to continue to be authentic and to continue to relentlessly pursue your faith, because from my own experience, when times got tough, that was all that really sustained me. And even at my worst moments, I knew I could count on that to bring me back someday. I know that you have a very engaging personality, that you're going to make friends fast, that you will have a lot of people who will want to be around you. And I encourage you to really discern the appropriate relationships to develop with those people and the role to take in your lives that allows you to show them what Jesus does to you and how He guides and directs the decisions you make. And then also just love on people so much that they can't help but see Him through you. I thought once about joining the Navy, but I never did. Jen came along. I know that there's a lot of opportunities there to explain away some of your actions as, boys just being boys. So I would ask you to be a man and to step up and to define the boundaries of what is acceptable for a man in the way that you talk to other people, the way that you respect women, the way that you conduct yourself in tense situations, and the way that you continually pursue excellence. I know that you have the capability of really demonstrating that to a lot of people, and I really would encourage you to embrace that responsibility. God gave it to you for a reason, and to sort of take some joy in that. I must tell you that I'm extremely proud of the choices you've made, and that I'm eager to keep in touch with you and see how you develop over the next several years. I'm positive this is going to be a really formative experience for you that shower blessings into many lives and for the rest of your life. So I just pray, we'll continue to pray for your health, of course, and for your strength and your growth, but I want you to know that you're going to do great, and expect those things of yourself, because you can rise to meet them.
Hey Randy, today I'm going to talk about forgiving. You forgiving and just forgiving. forgiveness overall. And I got a couple words for you and some Bible verses that I love for you just to keep with you just as you're gone, and just keep in the back of your mind. We are loved, and so we must forgive. Christ has forgiven us, and so we have to. Those cannot be separated. Because we know Jesus' love, we cannot not forgive. Here's a verse in Ephesians 4:31 through 32. It says, bear with each other, forgive one another. If anyone has grievances against someone, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. There are things in our lives that we're going to keep on doing, and we need the forgiveness as much as people need the forgiveness. I love the passage in 1 Corinthians 13. It says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong, it does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. And just as you're out there, wherever you are, today or tomorrow, knowing that because of this love, we need to forgive others. We need to put our names in the midst of that to forgive. So you put your name in there. Randy is patient. Randy is kind. Randy does not envy. Randy does not boast. Randy is not proud. I can keep going on. You know the things that you need to work on. So you can have love that just overwhelms your heart, overwhelms your thoughts, and overwhelms people outside. There's a passage in John 8:7. It's talking about the woman, the prostitute that's there, and people are about to stone her. And Jesus is there and said, if you are without sin, you cast the first stone. And everyone drops their stones and walks away. And I would ask you to hesitate when you're about to judge someone or not forgive someone or really not love people. That's always a good reminder just to say, I'm not without sin. I have more sin than anyone else here. And the biggest thing is Jesus is our model. He's our model for forgiveness. When the time has come and the rubber is going to meet the road and he's up there with those two other guys, he just looks to them and says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And I love that in the midst of his pain, in the midst of his hurt, in the midst of humiliation, he stops and he's thinking about others and forgiving and asking God that has put him there to forgive these other men because they don't know what they're doing. And so, bro, as you're out there serving our country, forgive. I know you're going to be great. I know you're going to do great. And I can't wait to hear stories about just your love coming out and showing to other people. So, bro, I'm praying for you.
Hey Randy, I just wanted to come out here to the baseball field in Santa Clara where you played Little League, not because there was any great accomplishments here or maybe even not so many good memories here on this field, but just to be able to connect with you on a subject that you and I tend to have a great connection on, and which is baseball. I had a great connection with my dad watching baseball games. We watch Yankee games together. There's something about baseball that when you're a kid, it's the greatest feeling watching that home run sail over the wall or watching the pitcher get that last out for a no-hitter. It's just memories that stick with you and just cause some great bonds as with families and especially with sons and dads. One thing about baseball though that's kind of been ruined over the last 20 years is the whole steroid scandal and performance-enhancing drugs. People that I looked at as heroes in my late teens and early 20s, to find out down the road that many of them were cheating and they weren't the real deal. And so they felt like, being that they couldn't get the job done, they figured they had to cheat. And so my charge to you, Randy, would be, as you're in the Navy and as you're serving God, to be real and to be authentic and to be different than the world. Now, what does this look like? Well, I think there's 3 areas that we need to be careful about when it comes to evaluating how real we are in our faith. The first one is that you need to be real with God. The wonderful thing about God is His love and His grace. And sometimes we think when we screw up that God's just there ready to nail us, that He's going to make us have to string together a whole bunch of days before He hears us, where we're being consistently good, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The love of God goes beyond what you and I can even imagine. God is for us, Randy. I want you to think about this. When you wake up in the morning on that ship or in the barracks, wherever you're going to be, imagine Jesus standing at the foot of your bed, and He's saying, you know what? I've been waiting here for you to wake up. I've been waiting for you to get up because I cannot wait to spend time with you today. I wonder what we're going to do today. What kind of adventure are we going to go on together? And when you view God that way, Randy, when you can be real with God, then you can become, to God and say, you know what, God, I blew it, or I acted in this way that I shouldn't have acted, and I know that's not of you, and I need you to help me in that area of my life. And God loves that openness. He loves that realness that you can have with Him instead of trying to cover things up. It didn't work for Adam and Eve, so it's not going to work for you. So be real with God. The second area is to be real with other people. And the truth is, Randy, is that you're going to be in a spot in the Navy, wherever you're stationed, you're going to come across people who have met so-called Christians before. And they've met some pretty poor Christians in their life, I'm sure. And there's probably going to be a lot of people who don't want to have anything to do with God because of the bad examples they've seen. Well, once word gets out that you're a Christian, they're going to be watching you. They're going to be teasing you. They're going to be making fun of you. They're going to be doing everything that they can to try to get you off of your faith. Because they're expecting you to drop the ball. They're expecting you to say, I'm done, I'm going home, I'm not playing the game anymore. And in reality, Randy, I've been in the same situation. I got made fun of when I was in the Navy for my faith. I hung in there, and yes, there was a lot of people that didn't come to the Lord. But God used me to be able to lead other people to Him. And there are people that are serving God today that because I took the time to be able to be faithful in my testimony, to be able to be real as far as what a Christian should be. Now, that doesn't mean that I was perfect. I slipped up myself. But again, going back to being real with God and accepting His love and forgiveness got me back on course. So be real with other people, because you're going to see who's out there that has a form of godliness but denies the power thereof. And what that means is that people were going to be watching to see if you drop your fruit. Don't drop your fruit. Okay, and then the third thing is, Randy, be real with yourself, okay? Just be honest with yourself. You're going to a place where it'll be easy to make up stories about your past accomplishments, what you did in high school and everything else. And the reality is, you're exactly who God made you to be. And the events that have happened in your life have happened because God wanted you in those circumstances so that you could use them as your testimony later on in life. Matthew 6:1 says, don't practice your religion out in the open where people can see and you can get praise for it. He says to do what's right at all times, okay? And God will reward you for being faithful. You don't need the pats on the back. I mean, I know pats on the back are great, but Randy, sometimes pats on the back could be your downfall. Be, as Mark said, humble so that you're able to help other people, because the focus should never be on you. The focus should always be on Jesus. So Randy, I would encourage you in those three things. Be real, be authentic, and be a difference in the world. Be a light to the world, Randy. You have a tremendous opportunity. I am proud of you for your decision to go into the Navy. I love you very much. I'm always going to be here for you. And I look forward to hearing great reports and seeing great growth in your life and being the man that God's called you to be. So let's take a quick minute and look back at all of these characters that these men that have gone before me have encouraged you to be over the next 6 years.
Randy, I'm calling you to service and to be a servant.
Randy, I charge you to to be a good steward of the resources that God's given you.
Randy, be sexually pure.
Randy, be bold.
Randy, be honest.
Randy, be a good friend.
Randy, be content and grateful.
Randy, be humble.
Randy, be a hard worker.
Randy, be wise with your decisions.
Randy, you must forgive.
Randy, be real and be different than the world. I love you.